Hello and welcome to Contramundum. This week, Candace Owens was fired by the Daily Wire. And what was she fired for? For saying Christ is king. It's not allowed. Not allowed in mainstream conservatism to say that Jesus Christ is king, especially not on Easter week. Cannot do that. She's
Especially not,
fired. Oh,
especially
yeah.
not Daily Wire.
Yeah, especially not at the Daily Wire. Why is that? We'll discuss some of these things. We'll discuss what it means, and the overarching meaning of this. Not just I could honestly not care less about the Daily Wire, but for what it means for the overarching, conservative, online right wing movement, whatever you want to call it, and for Christianity in America, especially evangelical Christianity in America. For the immediate future and more long term view. What do these things mean? Right. That's what I'm interested in. That's what CJ is interested in, I think. And and we'll talk about all that stuff here today. But before we get started, let me introduce us. I'm Andrew Isker, and this is my co-host, the star of the show, CJ Engel, the brains of the operation. And what did you do? Speaking of brains of the operation, right before we went on air, what did you do?
What did I do? Yeah, I ran into my bookshelf. So it's like
you could probably tell that CJ's bleeding from his forehead.
I am bleeding from my forehead. It's
swelling up right in front of us.
Yeah, it's embarrassing. I thought we were on. I thought I would have 20 minutes to take care of it, but it's not that big of a deal. But
yeah, you're welting up. You have a second forehead already. All right. Well, everyone's here to talk about that, of course. But let's let's dig in. So if people haven't heard, whoa, checking it. Hold on. I gotta post this because this is breaking. How do I put that in there? Yeah, that from Breezewood, Pennsylvania. I don't know if he's really from Breezewood, Pennsylvania. I hope so because that's awesome. The Breezewood photo, the iconic photo online. That's great. Thank you. Let me see if I could read it. Von Brighoff, go hard. Thank you very much. That's right. That's why CJ is such a big brain from Christian Salazar. That's right. He has to make more room in his skull for his brain. That's why his head is swelling up. So anyway, Candace Owens, she's fired. Why was she fired? How close have you followed this? We went live, last week and talked about it a little bit. It just had happened. We weren't online at all. And so, what happened? Why did she get fired, CJ?
Yeah, well, you sent me the space where they get into detail about it, and I guess you sent me this Twitter thread that shows that there was actual discussion based on her use of the phrase "Christ is King." It's a funny phenomenon. It's like, I guess my question is it organic? Like, I have there's part of me that's like, James Lindsay's kind of right. There's some sort of op angle to all this, and they're setting up narratives and stuff. And I just wonder where these things come from. But it's just funny because, when you declare this in the context of our questioning of our relationship with Israel, questioning of dispensationalism, two religions are essentially coming into conflict. And I think that's ultimately what happens here. I think that's the problem. You look at, there's people like, Candace Owens, but there's other people that are really engaged in the whole ressourcement phenomenon. People are trying to return. And one of the fundamental aspects of historic Christianity over the last 2,000 years has been its confrontation with Judaism. You cannot deny that. This unique 20th century relationship between evangelicalism and the state of Israel is completely novel, innovative, and artificial, and it has nothing to do with historical Christendom. So one of the consequences of returning with a V is that you're going to have this conflict. And I think that's ultimately what is happening. There's this, I hope James Lindsay's not listening, but there's this dialectic at play here between these two, and they're basically coming apart. And that's part of unraveling the 20th century is unraveling our dispensationalist political tendencies.
Yeah, and so much of it too is, it was funny. Jack Posobiec, Agent Poso, tweeted today. Right. Why is it that, because he tweeted the picture of, the skyscrapers in, thank you, Torbo. Look at that. Christ is King. Amen.
Dialectic. Torbo's into the chat.
That's right. Speaking of dialectic, he tweets this picture of, and everybody's seen it, I think, of, the Chrysler Building, the Empire State Building, lit up with crosses during Easter week. And he's like, why did we go from that in the 1950s to like hordes of third world people, marching free Palestine and burning things down, or BLM, or pride parades everywhere, and all of that kind of stuff. How did it go from that to that? What happened from 1950 till now? And you can't answer the question, I mean, without referring to the post-war consensus and what that is. And it's like state mandated secularism, right?
Yeah.
That's the point. That's what happened. Is Christianity was actively, consciously, purposefully or America rather, was purposefully de-Christianized.
Yeah.
That's what
In
happened.
Christianity was subverted. I
Yeah.
mean, this is like the classic thing. Like, they're wearing our religion as a skin suit, and
Hmm.
people fell for it. I mean, it was like this
Yeah.
mass veil over everybody's eyes, and it was just it happened so organically, not organically, but it happened so slowly and
Yeah.
passively that people just begin to assume certain aspects of Christianity that historically have not been true of it, and especially its
Yeah.
relationship with the Jewish religion, which it is. It's a separate religion. Once
Yeah.
they rejected the Messiah and they denied that Christ was God, and therefore they deny that Christ is King, this conflict is inevitable. It had to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I mean, so much of it is, yeah, like, so you want to talk about ops, right? Like dispensationalism
Was an
is
yeah,
an op.
yeah,
It
for
really
sure.
literally was. Like, if
Uh-huh.
all you have to dig too hard to see like who funded and distributed the Schofield Bible in the early 20th century.
Mhm.
It was Zionists. It was not people that cared that American Christians had a better, more accurate Bible that would lead them closer to the truth of God's word. Right? They don't care about any of that. They wanted to have a state in Israel.
Mhm.
And so, right, why would they pay for it? It was for that reason, because the two, fit hand in glove. They dovetail together perfectly. And it brings a major segment of Americans into that orbit where they unquestioningly support the Zionist project. Like there's not very, maybe there's some, maybe there's, you comment in the chat if you're one of them, but there's not very many dispensationalists who are like, no, I'm against Zionism. I don't want to send, infinity $billion to Israel. Right? No, those fit together.
Mhm.
Um, and so it's purposeful because it wasn't a novel theology that came out of nowhere. Right? There's no, I mean, they'll say this, oh yeah, there's antecedents there, this guy somewhere in the early church taught the rapture or whatever. But the entire framework of the theology came about in the early 19th century, first in England and then in the United States. And all of the goofy stuff in America, I mean, America is weird in terms of American religion, American Christianity. All sorts of weird cults and novel theologies arose in like the middle of the 19th century, right?
Yeah.
You have this, the Second Great Awakening. They kind of fit together, right? All the weirdness that came out of the Second Great Awakening, and so even though it's not particularly a phenomenon of the Second Great Awakening, they sort of they they fit the same framework, same idea that we're just going to remake this kind of democratized Christianity in our own image. And so, yeah, so that's a big part of it. And I don't think you could have the post-war consensus the way that we have, the purposeful de-Christianization of America in the 20th century without dispensationalism,
Mhm.
right? Without especially the minds as it pertains to eschatology, because there's various eschatologies throughout the history of Christendom. I mean, there was premillennialism throughout throughout the 2,000 years of the church, but never dispensational premillennialism. Right? There was a historic one, and and that wasn't like doomerist or defeatist either. It wasn't, oh, the world's gonna end any minute now, so we should just give up. Right? They didn't think that way. You don't build Christendom if you
Mhm.
think that. You tear Christendom down if you think that, or you allow it to be torn down when you think that way. And so you wouldn't have it in this way. There would be much more of a fight from Christians over the last 60, 70, 80 years. Um, so that, I mean, that's a big part of it. And ultimately what is happening is, and I think what people are failing to recognize, because you saw people react to it. It's like, oh, no, Christ is King. Like going back to the the title of this and the theme that we have here. Um, Christ is king is, well, you could say it, that's fine, but you shouldn't say it like Nick Fuentes and all of the, the Groypers and the people like that, because they just use it as a political slogan and they don't really mean it. And
You got to
and
wonder if it is a political slogan, though. I mean, like,
yeah,
what are the implications of it? I mean, these people want to relegate Christ. I mean, Owen Strachan or whatever, he had that tweet about how he basically like implied that Christ's kingship was relegated to the confessions of those who are saved. And
yeah,
it's just
your,
they like
your
to
little
put it in a
heart right
bottle.
here. Yeah,
Yeah, they like to put it in a bottle and put it on the desk, and it's like Christ's kingship, but contained. There's boundaries on it,
yeah,
and then because it is a political statement. I mean, the idea that there is. I mean, we talked about the Christian Prince last week, and we'll probably continue that shortly. But
2 weeks ago, yeah,
2 weeks ago, but the idea that the prince, reflects the image of God, God's kingship over the universe. That's a political statement. I mean, we're
yeah,
making political statements here. We're explicitly denying the secularity that have been given to us by dispensationalists. That's what
yeah,
we're doing. We're countering it. We're counter signaling all
yeah.
the main themes and priorities of secularism and Zionism and dispensationalism. Christ as king is meant to counter signal those.
It does. I mean, it tears it apart because, like, yeah, the Owen Strachan point. People like him. I mean, we'll pick on him because he's a good avatar for the general principle. But like, tell me more about a king that's apolitical, right?
Mm-hmm.
How it's an office that's just not political. Like, it's literally, like, by definition, a political office. That's what a king is. He
Mm-hmm.
rules. He rules over people, and not just you and your precious little heart internally here. He rules over everybody, right? At,
Mm-hmm.
at the end of Matthew, he says, "All authority in heaven and earth is given to me." Right? Not just like if you accept me into your heart, um, but all of it over all of mankind, over all of humanity. And you look at like in the Book of Acts, and it's where was Paul? Was he in Corinth? I can't remember which one off the top of my head now. I have to go back and look. He was either in Corinth or Macedonia, and the Jews provoke a riot, and they go to the authorities and they say, "This guy's breaking the law." Right? He's breaking the law, and what's he doing? What has he done that's against the law? He's proclaiming another king
Mm-hmm.
other than Caesar. And to that point, Paul hadn't said anything about Caesar or any of those things, at least as is recorded in Acts. But it's an implication of what he is saying about Jesus. Right? It's an implication that Jesus is king, therefore he's king over Caesar. He's king over Rome, and you can't countenance that. Right? He's breaking the law. You can't say that. Right?
Mm-hmm.
The exact same principle. That
Mm-hmm.
if Jesus is king, he's not just king over Candace Owens and you and me. He's also king over Ben Shapiro and Jeremy Boring and Andrew Klavan. Right? He's king over all of those people.
So
Um,
let me ask you this: what kicked all this off? Was it the Clavin guy or whatever? Was that where it all started?
no, I mean, apparently, Candace has been, and I haven't followed her, that closely. I don't subscribe to the Daily Wire. I don't,
You don't.
watch it. I don't. Yeah, I don't actually. People should, if they're canceling the Daily Wire subscription, you should go over to contramundumpodcast.com and subscribe to the number one Christian nationalist podcast in the world. You just transfer that right over. But I haven't followed her too closely, but I know that she's been like she debated a rabbi
Right.
about Israel. Like this guy was slandering her, saying she loved Hitler and things like that.
Yeah, they have one
And
trick.
yeah, that's exactly like you love Hitler and you're an anti-Semite and you're a bad person. And she's defending herself. And some of it is I think she maybe engaged on Twitter or liked some tweets from like Nick Fuentes' people. So they didn't like that. But apparently, like the thing I sent you, there's rumors, right? So take those for what they're worth. That this has been going on for like a year. That
Mhm.
she and Ben Shapiro have been at odds for a year. I mean, some of it I think is like the Kanye stuff back when Kanye was kind of going nuts, more than normal. and,
many, many such cases. Yeah.
yeah, and saying, "Oh, I like Candace Owens," and like talking to her and that kind of thing. So those associations there, I think, kind of drove a lot of that. But then also a lot of a lot of her conversation about Israel and Israel after October 7th and what they've been doing in Gaza, like questioning these things, or even questioning like why should America be involved in this? Why should we care?
Right.
Why is this our problem that we have to pay our tax money to? Like think normal rational things if you care about America is like asking those questions. And they can't allow that. Right? They can't allow criticism of Israel. And so on that space, and we should go to it. I mean, it'd be fun to play the whole thing because it was fascinating. So it was like Lauren Shen from The Blaze had this Twitter space. A number of friends of ours were on it. Like Ren of Men was on there, and Michael Foster, and like Sovereign Bra and guys like that were on it. But then Nick Fuentes came on it on an alt and started talking and kind of defending himself. And
Is that
Jeremy
Candace Owens?
Boring. Yeah, it was Candace Owens.
He just got banned. They just got banned this morning.
I'm sure. Yeah. And Jeremy Boring joined the space and engaged directly with Ben Shapiro, and I mean just from like a meta level, like standing outside of it and thinking about like why would he do that?
Yeah.
Right. Why would, because for the last 10 years or whatever, they have never engaged him ever directly, ever. They have no reason to, right, from their perspective.
Right.
And now he does, which means, I mean, the only conclusion I can reach is Candace was the most popular show on the day, more popular than Ben Shapiro. And so if you fire the most, I mean, it's like Fox News. Like imagine if Fox News was subscription only based, and when they fired Tucker, right, what would have happened, right? They'd be bleeding subs like crazy, and rather than people just pay for cable and they get money from who knows from wherever, so they doesn't matter where they get their money to them. So they're more flexible in this way. They can fire the most popular guy on their network. It's not that way with the Daily Wire. It's not advertisers and big corporations that are necessarily funding it. It's subscribers. And for them to fire their most popular commentator means like a lot of people are going to cancel.
So what did Jeremy say on the space?
On the space, he said that one, it was interesting because Nick, and I haven't paid that close attention to him either. I mean, I only see clips and things from him over the years. And so I kind of assumed that he was just this very vitriolic, aggressive guy, right? Sometimes people say that about me. And he was extremely cordial and civil and polite and deferential, and he had a very engaging conversation with Jeremy. He said, "Okay, that's fair," things like that. And toward the end of it, Boring said, "Nick, you're very talented. You're very I wish I had the quote verbatim. You're very talented. You're very entertaining. You're good. You produce good content. I watch your show often."
Yeah.
But that was whoa, what, really? That was, but then he's like, "But I'm just very concerned about some of the things that you're saying. They're very concerning to me." So it's weird how deferential he was to Fuentes. It was very weird, which I don't know what to make of that. Right? Is he just doing damage control?
I think he's like the face of the Daily Wire, so he's got to play multiple roles there. He's walking a fine line. He also knows that like I said, the confrontation between Judaism and Christianity is coming to a forefront, and the majority of the Daily Wire's audience is actually probably not Jewish but Christian.
Yeah,
and so
for sure.
It's a really difficult business place to be in, but they're coming unraveled, and businesses have to make decisions, and lines have to be crossed.
Yeah, and what it is, I mean, for all of this, like we've kind of alluded to, and you have, CJ, is the hyphen in Judeo-Christian is coming apart.
Yep.
Right. It's not going to hold up anymore, and so Judaism and Christianity, especially among Christians, I mean, like Jews get this. Like I've got Jewish friends. It's true. I do.
my best friends are Jewish.
Many fine people, and like they don't look at Christianity as though it's like their brothers or their younger brothers in the faith or anything. They're like this different religion,
Yeah,
right?
even Ben
Totally
Shapiro
alien
says
to
that.
them.
Ben Shapiro
Yeah,
says that. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, the combination
Where
was up. The
yeah,
combination was
yeah.
the op in the 20th century. Yeah,
Whereas Christians especially in the last 100 years think, I mean, you see that, like, I think maybe Owen Strain, people like that say, no, those are our elder brothers in the faith,
right.
right? They've got all the stuff we have. They just don't have Jesus. And it's like, no, it's a totally alien religion. Like the thing that Christians need to learn and are starting to learn is that the entire Bible, Old and New Testament, the religion of the entire Bible is Christianity. It's not Judaism, Old Testament, Christianity, New Testament. It's the entire Bible is Christian. And when you get to the New Testament, where does Judaism get its origins? And of course, like I tweeted about this week, and I had like hundreds of really angry Jewish people arguing with me uh, that no, Judaism gets its origin after Christ, right?
Right.
That's the Christian perspective, and of course they'll say no, it's rabbinic tradition going back hundreds of years BC, and that's true, but
That's the
that's the
Babylonian captivity of
yeah
the Israel people. Yeah,
yeah exactly. It's that, and those are the things, like, you read the Gospels. That's what Jesus was fighting the
right.
whole time, is the rabbinic traditions, because they're perverting the law, they're
Right.
perverting the Torah, the actual Bible, um, and so, like, there is this departure at that point between the two,
My
and,
pastor just preached on this last weekend. His entire focus was Stephen's, sermon against the Jewish leadership. Right
yeah,
before he was
yeah,
stoned, and he just talks about this. The entire structure of his argument was that case after case, moment after moment, and event after event. The entire story of the Israelite people was basically that, just constantly misinterpreting, perverting, and subverting the law of God every
yeah,
time. And then finally, the end, their end was faced, and they chose the wrong direction. And
yeah,
and there are Jews who chose Christ, and they became
yeah,
Christians. I mean, that was when the Jew, it came to the Jews first, right? And so all
yeah,
the disciples were Jewish, and they chose the Messiah. But all of those thousands of Jews who rejected the Messiah started their own religion, and that's when it
yeah.
came. That's when it was born.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I mean, and so much of it too. Like, if you read, and I didn't read the Gospels this way because I was, you grow up in the environment you're in.
Mm-hmm.
But when I started to, read the Gospels and understand the distinction between Christianity and Judaism, and you go back and read the Gospels, and it's stark, like, just
Mm-hmm.
majorly stark. The invectives that Jesus made against the Pharisees, um, are just right there. I mean, the fact um, that Jesus is saying to them, right? You, according to your traditions, right? You tell men that if they take their inheritance that they get from their parents, right? The eldest son gets a double portion of his inheritance. They take that, and it's meant to care for your parents in their old age. You take that and you make it korban, right? A gift to the temple, to leave your parents destitute, to spite them, right?
Mm-hmm.
You call that good and holy, and in doing, right, in doing so, you're using this to justify the most high-handed violation of the fifth commandment of honoring your father and your mother, right? You use your own traditions to subvert the law of God. And that's the point again and again and again that Jesus made to the Pharisees, that
Mm-hmm.
these traditions that they held are subversive to the actual biblical religion. And I mean, there's so much other stuff too. I mean, I preached through the Gospel of Matthew a couple years ago, and I mean, you see it all over the place. Even like, like the unforgivable sin. And maybe you'll disagree with me on this, CJ. We'll see. Maybe people in the comments will too. But the unforgivable sin, right? My whole life, everyone's confused by that. They have no idea, what does that mean. Did I sin against the Holy Spirit? Have I done something wrong that I won't be forgiven for? And it's like, no, that's not what that's about, right? What is Jesus like? He's talking about Israel and how much they are rejecting their God and
Mm-hmm.
rejecting His law and all of this, and then he goes into the unforgivable sin and says, blasphemy against the Son, that'll be forgiven, but blasphemy against the Holy Spirit will not be forgiven. And right, what did Israel do corporately as a people? They rejected Jesus and had him put to death.
Mm-hmm.
And judgment did not come. Right, God didn't come and nuke Jerusalem after the crucifixion, right away. Right, he didn't do that.
Right away. Right.
No. What happened instead? Holy Spirit comes at Pentecost. Right, the apostles and the empowered by the Spirit preach to Israel. Many people are saved, but the majority are not. And all throughout the book of Acts, right, the people persecuting the church are the Jews, right? They're not just persecuting the church, but they're persecuting the Holy Spirit, right? When Paul meets Jesus at the road to Damascus, right, he's saying, "Why are you persecuting me?" Right? And he isn't attacking Jesus; he's attacking his spirit in his people. And so for 40 years, this went on until God judged Jerusalem and destroyed it. And the temple, the whole covenant, completely demolished, completely destroyed, never to return again. And that's what that's about. And the same thing, right? The same thing with the sign of Jonah, right? People get confused about the sign of Jonah. They think, oh, it's Jesus talking about his death, burial, and resurrection. But when you read when he talks about the sign of Jonah, he's talking about how Sodom and Gomorrah and Nineveh on the day of judgment, they'll look back at this generation, you people right now, and they will judge you for what you've done. These wicked people throughout the most wicked people in the whole Old Testament, they're going to rise up at the judgment and the resurrection and judge you and say, how could you do this? And then he goes into the sign of Jonah, saying that, right, that you ask for a sign, right? He's done all of these signs right in front of them, healed lepers, healed the blind, healed all sorts of people, walks on water, raises the dead, does all these things, and everybody can see it. And they're like, it's not enough, Jesus. We need one more sign. And he says, this wicked and adulterous generation, you're going to get one more sign. And that sign is the sign of Jonah. And what's the sign of Jonah? Right? You read the book of Jonah, right? Jonah doesn't want to go to Nineveh. And there's a reason why Jonah doesn't want to go to Nineveh. It's not what VeggieTales tells you. He's not afraid of the people in Nineveh. Right? He's not afraid of getting hit by fish or something. He's not afraid of what they'll do to him. He doesn't want to go to Nineveh because he's read Deuteronomy. He knows what that means, right? God in Deuteronomy says, I'm going to go to a nation that does not know me, and then you'll know your judgment is coming. And so he doesn't want to go to Nineveh, and he gets to Nineveh, and the only message he preaches is 40 days, Nineveh's going to be destroyed. Nineveh will be overthrown. That's the only thing he says. And what happens? All the Ninevites repent in sackcloth and ashes, from the king all the way down. He proclaims a fast, and God restrains the judgment that he's bringing on them. At the end of the book of Jonah, Jonah is furious. He's furious. He's like, I knew that you would save them. I knew you would do this. That's the only reason you would send me here, is to do that. And why is he angry? Right? Nobody knows. They don't understand it. Why is he angry? He's angry because of what that means for Israel. It means that Israel is going to be judged. So when Jesus says, you're going to see the sign of Jonah, that means God's grace is going to go to the Gentiles, and then you'll know. Then you know. And you look throughout all of the Gospels in the book of Acts, right? Anytime Jesus bumps into a Gentile, it's like, this is God. You're definitely God. What can I do to be saved? Right? They all just have the faith. Like he says of the centurion, I've never not seen such great faith in all of Israel. Right? It's not hyperbole. It's the truth. Right? He goes to the Syrophoenician woman, and it says, I came for the lost sheep of Israel. It's not right to give, the people's bread to the dogs, the children's bread to the dogs. And she's like, I'll just take some scrums off some crumbs off the top of the table that fall down. That's fine. And it's like, what faith? I have never seen such faith in all of Israel. Right? Every time he runs into a Gentile, and they're like, whoa, this is crazy. And it gets into like the messianic secret stuff in the Gospels, like the thing people don't understand. Why is Jesus telling people to not tell anybody? Well, because his ministry is judgment on Israel itself. Right? Every time he talks to a Gentile and he heals a Gentile, does a miracle for a Gentile, he's like, yeah, go tell everybody. I don't really care. He heals people in Israel, and they're like, keep this to yourself. Don't really tell anybody. Don't tell anybody. Like, why is that? Why is that? Because for that reason. So, like, all of this is bound up in the same stuff, that Israel is rejecting Jesus, and it's appropriate that we're talking about this stuff on Good Friday, right? Israel is rejecting Jesus, and the Gentiles, on the other hand, just believe all over the place. Paul runs into Gentiles, boom, they believe. All over. The people that gladly receive what he has to say in all the synagogues are the Gentile God-fearers that attend the synagogue, more than the Jews themselves.
This is also why Paul talks about in Romans 11 that it's meant to provoke their jealousness. I mean, that's the entire story of them. They were envious.
Yeah. What if it is envy?
What if it is envy? I was just thinking that. But
Yeah,
yeah, I mean that's part of the entire structure, the dynamic between Christ's coming and the Jews who rejected him. It was meant to make them feel awkward. They knew
yeah,
that they had rejected him, that they had rejected the true God for thousands of years, and when Christ came, when the moment came for them to make their final decision, they chose the wrong way, and they were
yeah,
provoked to jealousness, and the
yeah,
Gentiles were given an offer to the gospel, and it completely unsettled the dynamic between Jews and Gentiles, and it's been that way for 2,000 years. The
yeah.
20th century is sort of an exception to that, and it's because that Christianity was subverted.
Yeah, yeah, that honestly is the case. That's falling apart. That's
Right.
what people are struggling with, and why they will call any criticism of Israel or any opposition to the Jewish religion by Christians anti-Semitism. Like it's crazy because it's like I could say just horrible stuff about Muhammad and Allah and the Muslim religion, and nobody would bat an eye, right? I probably couldn't do that in like France, but or in certain parts of Minneapolis, but right. Generally speaking, in the church, right, you can be an expert in jihad and Islam and
Mhm.
just stridently oppose Islam all day long, or any other religion, but if you make arguments against Judaism, right? Oh, that's anti-Semitism. You can't do that. That's very bad.
Yeah.
And but that's falling apart. Like people
Well,
are
they also
beginning to see
recognize,
reality.
yeah, I mean, one of the things that I think characterizes us, Orthodox Christians, is that we seek the conversion of the Jews. See,
Yeah,
that's the thing. It's like, that's we want them to be saved. We want them to repent of their Judaism. We want them to repent of their rejection of the Messiah, and we want them to cling to Christ.
yeah,
But that in itself is anti-Semitic, because because then it implies the historical rejection of Christianity, and
yeah,
it also implies that there's something wrong with their religion, and you're not allowed to
yeah.
suggest any of those things.
Well, and you maybe remember this, like in Ohio, there was the pro-life group, that was fighting the like ballot initiative that was in Ohio, the referendum, and there was a gal, Lizzy Marbach. You remember this,
Mm-mm.
right? I think she tweeted something like, "There's no way to salvation other than Jesus Christ." Right? It's just
Mhm.
basic
Oh, I do
Christian
remember
stuff.
this. Yeah,
And a U.S. congressman, a Jewish U.S. congressman,
yeah,
Max Miller. I don't no, not Millerman.
yeah.
That's a friend of ours. I can't remember what his name is. Doesn't matter. He like replied
Yeah,
to her and attacked her. Like, take this down. This is anti-Semitism. And
yeah,
apparently, the guy's wife was on the board. Yeah, Max Miller. Thank you, Grey Duck. His wife was on the board, and like she was fired later that week.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
for that, and it's like, what? Like you
yeah.
can't espouse basic Christian truth in mainstream
You
conservatism,
can't.
or you're
You
going to
can't.
be because like genuine Christianity is exclusive, right?
Mhm.
You're only saved through Jesus. That's that basic Christian doctrine. And if you say, right, Ben Shapiro, if he doesn't believe in Jesus, he's going to hell. That's
Mhm.
bad. I don't want him to go to hell. Right? I
Mhm.
want him and his family and all the people he loves. I want him to know Jesus and be saved. Right? You say that, that's anti-Semitism. You're a
Mhm.
bad person. You must love Hitler. Right? That's what they think. Right?
Yeah,
Literally, that's what they
yeah,
think. If you say that stuff, and so some of it, like, yeah, is it an op? Right? Going back to that, right? Is it an op? I to a certain degree, I think it kind of is. Like, you have to. They want to conflate just basic normal Christianity that is willing to assert itself
right.
with radical stuff that they can bring the hammer
This
down
is why I
on.
mentioned at the beginning that there's an element like, okay, so maybe this isn't an op, but there's something coming where an op is going to be obvious. Like, you have like the new bill in Texas where Abbott's saying that, like, in the wording of the letter, he basically is twisting arms in the Texas college system
Yeah,
to prevent speech that's considered anti-Semitic. And then you have phrases like Christ is King being associated with anti-Semitism, and so you
yeah.
can see
Ryan
these
Turnipseed made that point.
yeah, they're
Yeah,
starting to blossom, and I think it's actually going to become more explicit. I think that
yeah,
we're on the beginning stages of this unfolding, and our Christian opposition is going to rear its ugly head and take off its veil.
Yeah. So this is the tweet from Greydeck from Lizzy Marbach. There is no hope for any of us outside of having faith in Jesus Christ alone. And yeah,
That
here,
is an anti-Jewish, anti-Judaism
I
statement, and it really
guess.
is.
Yeah.
Well, it is though. It's
Yeah.
not anti-Semitic, but it is
This is what she said.
anti-Judaism.
Yeah. This is what Max said. This is one of the most bigoted tweets I've ever seen. Delete it, Lizzy. Religious freedom in the U.S. applies to every religion. You've gone too far, right? And so yeah, that's the thing that Turnipseed said the other day. Like, what a coincidence! Like the leading conservative punditry group, declares war on Christ as King and calls it anti-Semitic at the same time that South Dakota and Texas and Florida, and they tried to do it in Ohio or in Indiana, I believe, and it wasn't aggressive enough, so the governor vetoed it. It's like, no, we gotta add some teeth to this thing, right? What a coincidence that at the same time they're saying this is an anti-Semitic statement, just basic Christianity is anti-Semitism, and they're going to outlaw it in various ways, right? And I don't know the degree to how they do that. Like, you can't. I mean, some of it is in like government positions and university systems and with discrimination law. If but that's how this stuff works, right?
That's Christopher Caldwell's entire point.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is that the foundations for what we're seeing right now were laid back in the civil rights movement. Like, that's exactly what he's been arguing. And this is why people are confused, maybe who are new to this, why we oppose the civil rights movement, because that's the foundation for everything that we're seeing right now. The discrimination law is the thing that's being weaponized against Heritage America.
Yeah, that's the whole point. It's not right. People like we have hate watchers like Jake Meador. I'm sure you're watching, Jake. How are you, Jake? Get a haircut, Jake. I hope you like mine. You could get one just like this. I'll recommend my barber to you. He's a great guy. They attack us and say, oh, Isker and Engel, they don't like the Civil Rights Act because they hate black people and they want black people discriminated against and they want Jim Crow and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, no, you fail to understand the point that Caldwell makes. Yeah. That the entire point of the Civil Rights Act is to have what we have today, both in the LGBT stuff, in things like this with the anti-Semitism stuff. It's like, Texas is inundated with leftism, and all of the country is, in the university systems in particular. They hate white people, right? I mean, when I was in college 20 years ago, I would hear stuff about white privilege and how evil white people are and how we need to dismantle whiteness. This is 20 years ago. Why aren't there laws against that? Right? Mm-hmm. Why aren't you writing laws about hate speech against white people and anti-white racism? Right? Why aren't you doing that? Right? Why do you care about like South Dakota in particular has 250 Jewish people in the entire state. Right? Like one synagogue in Sioux Falls. And it's the most important thing in the world for Christy Dome to make sure that they pass an anti-Semitism law. Right? Yeah. It's crazy. It's nuts. And the reason why she wanted to be vice president and this would help curry favor with Trump, who's, a big Zionist and so forth. Mm-hmm. And so like that's the reason why they do this stuff. Like, it's the deep politics behind it. But it is ironic. Like, they're putting these two things together, and I don't think it's a coincidence why they attack basic Christianity and call it anti-Semitic. And so the future, like the near-term future, is that espousing things like Lizzy said is going to be attacked way more. And this is just basic. This is stuff I heard in Campus Crusade in college, right? Or in any evangelical church in the country, right? Just John 14, right? There's no way to the Father except through me, right? You say that's anti-Semitic. Can't say that. Cannot say that. And it's crazy too. Like I tweeted this out earlier this week, saying Christ is King is a forbidden term. You're not allowed to say it anymore. And people are like, you just said it. It's allowed, right? It's not for, it's like, I mean, people, it's an IQ test, right? You failed. if you reject that. It's an IQ test, dude. Like, it is, the point is you can literally say the N-word if you want to, but nobody's gonna, right? Mm-hmm. Because your life will be ruined. Everything will be just like, that's the point. And what drives it? It's Civil Rights Act. right? And the new the new legal system that we have that punishes these things. That's why. And so, but at the same time, like the opposition to basic Christianity, what it also does is drives Christians to be much more militant and aggressive. And
Well, and that's what
that's the white pill.
This is why they're reacting to it, because as dispensationalism falls apart and as Christianity, it becomes more obvious that historical Christianity has been an anti-Judaist religion. You're going to find Christians that are reasserting themselves in the historic faith. This is one of the consequences of ressourcement. This is why it's so funny when all the ressourcement bros are like really against, they're like really cautious about
Anything
it all.
Right wing. Yeah.
It's like, if you read historical Christian literature, it is not appropriate for 20th century elite discourse. You know,
it's not just Martin Luther and his little pamphlet, right?
Right. It is not
all of them.
It's the church fathers. I mean, look, they were in the midst of a struggle between, like the entire. I mean, this is the entire point of V. Michael Jones's Jewish revolutionary spirit is once they rejected Christ, they became an enemy of the Christian faith, and like the church fathers reflect this wholeheartedly, everywhere. I mean, they also wanted the conversion of the Jews. They also wanted to bring them under Christ's reign, but they did not ever treat Judaism as something that was associated with the Christian faith
or friendly or our elder brothers in the faith or anything like that. It's like no, this is it's like paganism in the sense that it's an alien religion that is opposed to Jesus, right? That's what people have to understand. And people are beginning to understand that. Like you look at the reaction to saying Christ is king, and that's what happens. And so like I mean you read John Chrysostom and the stuff that he says, and it's not very pretty, right? It's not very friendly and nice and sweet. And that's just reality. Is that this is a religion that is opposed to Jesus, and doesn't mean you have to hate people or despise them or be driven by rage against them. Rather, you work to seek their salvation.
Well,
right? Preach to them.
Seek their salvation, but also be political realists. I mean, there are power players out there that have nefarious interests, and a lot of them are religiously rooted. And so I think we should be realistic about that too, and we have to be comfortable saying that we're not. Yeah. The elite are not a bunch of rootless individuals. They're trying to turn us into rootless individuals, but they actually do have, occultic and anti-Christian roots. I mean, they are there. There is a connection between these powerful religions and, world dynamics. I think we should be politically realist about it. We shouldn't be hysterical about it, but we should be honest about it. The only religion that's not allowed is the historic Christian faith.
Yeah. Why is that? Weird. Why is that? And it's why they, retcon this idea that America was always this secular country. It was never a Christian country. I mean, that's what drives the rancor against Christian nationalism. Is what is Christian nationalism? It's just reasserting the fact that America was founded as a Christian country, and we want it to be again. Right? That's it. And you can't have that. That's horrible. It's terrible. We have freedom of religion. No, and freedom of religion for these people just means post 1950s secularism. Right? It means having a neutral public square. And so if you and I were Jewish, right, and we went to
Andrew's out.
Oh no, I'm here. I'm here. Okay. Don't worry. No, we're being attacked. we're being attacked here. Like if we were Jewish, we wouldn't want to live under Christian hegemony. We would be much more comfortable under a secular and secularist environment. That just makes sense, right? Why would a group strategy be to pursue secularism and do everything to bring it about? It's because what's better for you as a people, right? It just makes sense.
Well, this
right?
This
so
is
isn't necessarily nefarious. It's sensible.
Yeah, well, this is the point that James Burnham makes about liberalism is, when people are out of power, they don't have the cultural religious hegemony, they will pursue secularism, a neutral space, right? Yeah. Once they're in power, then they'll turn that neutralism against the old hegemony, right? And then that's exactly what we saw in the 20th century. It was this liberalism and secularism is always transitional. It's always this, it can never last. It's never permanent. That was the function of secularism and liberalism in the 20th century was this neutral moment in time where those on the outside would be able to become on the inside and then establish their own hegemony. And the Christian, heritage America, they're completely unaware of what was going on. And so now we've been subjected to it. And do you think the people, the new leftists in charge, they don't care about neutrality or freedom of speech or all those things. They want to assert their own hegemony, which is what Christianity once had in European civilization.
Yeah. And so there's going to be hegemony for somebody. Right. That's always the point. I mean, it's the same thing with like blasphemy laws, right? When we talk about blasphemy laws, right? There's always going to be them, right? They always exist somewhere. It's just which ones.
Exactly.
Right? There's always going to be a cultural hegemony, a religious hegemony in a society. The question is which one.
Well, that's what Abbott's free speech restrictions are about.
Yeah.
It's a blasphemy law.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Here we go. Really enjoy your show. Andrew, has anyone ever said you looked like Dick Butkus? That's first time ever. No, it's happened a time or two.
I was gonna say you're gonna have to pay for a answer to that question.
Yeah, I know.
That's a $5. That's a $5 question.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. I wish I could play football as good as Dick Butkus could. That's all I got to say about that. Yeah, it is. Like that I mean, overarching point that we've been making again and again, and we'll continue to make as long as the guys like Owen Strahan and James Lindsay and so forth are out there, is liberalism is the transitory period. That's what it is. It's the transition between Christian America and what we have now,
where we're going.
And so the question, and I don't think it's insurmountable. I don't think we're doomed to have this thing forever. And I don't think this thing forever can last forever for very long. The chaos and disorder and whatever, trash world. Like I don't think it can. Like it can't sustain it. I mean, even just looking at the calamity in Baltimore this week, and you look at the civic leader, and this is a point I think Posobiec has made this point, that you look at the civic leaders of Baltimore, the city council and the mayor and all of the people that run that place, right? They're not people that are capable of building Baltimore in the first place.
Right.
If there was nothing but the bare geography of Baltimore, they would not be able to create it. And you can, like, evidence to that fact is they say it's going to take 10 years to rebuild that bridge.
Yeah.
10 years, right? We built the Hoover Dam in 5 years. That was a marvel of engineering at the time. And so, no, it's insane. It's nuts. They cannot do it. The complex systems that exist in the world today, we don't have the human capital to rebuild them. Or if we do have the human capital, it's invested in all sorts of other places, or it's not being used at all. Right? There are probably 1,600 people watching us right now. A good portion of them are probably underemployed autistes, right? People with an above 120 IQ, and they're not doing the kind of job they would be doing 50 years ago. Right?
Yeah.
They'd be building rockets or something, or whatever. They'd be doing engineering or doing high value stuff instead of whatever they're doing now.
Yeah.
And so a society like that can't last. It can drag along for a long time, but it's never going to rebuild the heights that it was at. And so I am optimistic, not in an optimistic as cowardice sort of way that CJ likes to say, but I'm optimistic that the things that are good and true and beautiful can reassert themselves if people summon the will to do so. And sometimes you don't summon the will to fight until someone starts fighting you. Right? Until you get punched. I'm not like going out and looking for a fight with people, but like if somebody punches me in the face, all right, then it's on. Right? That's kind of the attitude, right? we've been this lumbering giant, this sleeping giant for a very long time, and now we're getting punched in the face, and it's time to put up or shut up, right? It's time to reassert ourselves. Time to be far more strident, far more vocal, far more bold. And it doesn't mean like, the guy in his normie job needs to strip his anon and go be a martyr. I'm not saying that. Go lose everything because of what you believe. Like, rather, it should be the people who are in a position of leadership to be much stronger. People that are, safer from and have a parachute from being canceled. Right.
Yeah.
Those are the people that need to be much, much bolder
Like
in these
Dusty
things.
Beavers. Yeah.
Like Dusty. Yeah. And people like him. And it's funny, like Dusty is not, like, he doesn't go as far as I do talking about Judaism and things like that, but he gets attacked for being anti-Semitic because he opposes porn. Why?
So
That's
it's a
weird.
curious thing to say.
Weird. Why?
Yeah.
Why is that? Right? That's crazy. Like, it's nuts.
Yeah.
Right? It's nuts. It's because, well, he's a Christian. He believes the only way to salvation is Jesus, and that Judaism is a false religion because he's a Christian.
Well, it's like when the the one of the main Jewish organizations, I forget which one, was arguing that the bans on abortion was against the Jewish religion, freedom of religion. Yeah. You're like, what?
Yeah, it's a First Amendment right.
Interesting comment there.
Yeah, this is part of our religion. It's a sacred right, and it's like, oh man, I'd get banned if I said that. Like, no.
Right.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah, like this comment from Truttle. Here's the thing: you don't have to go out of your way on Judaism at all. The bad actors will come after you just like they did with Lizzy Marbach. Yeah, we brought that up, and that's the thing. Like, if you just assert the exclusivity of the Christian faith, you will be attacked as an anti-Semite. Right? That's the point that we're at now, and some of it, is purposeful. Right? That it's not by accident they're doing these things. And what that does is you just have to be able to tell the truth and be realistic and not care. And people, I mean, some people will be like, because I saw this from a lot of commentators, Christian conservative commentators this week, where, well, there is ways that Christ is King could be anti-Semitic. Right? There is ways, and it's like, I guess, but I don't really care about those people if they're doing it that way, right? If they're using that slogan, it's like, Nick Fuentes believes in the Nicene Creed too, as far as I know. I'm going to keep saying it. Like, I'm not going to stop.
Well,
because of associations. Like, I'm not going to stop saying it. No, Jesus Christ is King. Period. Anyway, CJ's typing an email right now.
Oh no, I'm looking up a verse.
But no, like, I think that's the direction we have to go. And so some of and I'll finish my point while you're looking up the verse. The Christian conservative commentators who are saying that, right, I think a lot of it is they're desperately trying to hold together the hyphen.
Yeah.
Right? They really want the hyphen to still be there because it's safe and it's comfy. Because nobody's going to call you an anti-Semite if you're always talking about the Judeo-Christian religion and the Judeo-Christian tradition. It's safe. You're free from criticism if you do that, and the center cannot hold.
Yeah.
Right. It's not going to hold up anymore. And part of the big reason why it's not holding up anymore is because Christian hegemony is gone completely, and so they're free to attack us.
Yeah,
that's why.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, what you said earlier, I was just going to piggyback off of that and just talk about the fact I was looking up Philippians 1:18, where it just says, whether Christ is preached in pretense or in truth, we should rejoice. So, like, if people are using it in a specific way, God can still have, find glory in that. That's people's personal motivations does not take away from the assertment of true things, and like that's the thing that we have to constantly. It's funny because God often uses can often use like agitating voices within the world to assert his dominance. That's part of the development of history.
Well, and a lot of it too it goes back to a lot of the late 20th century evangelical pathologies of, right, the way that you get people to become Christians is you just nice them into the kingdom. You're just sweet and nice to them, be really winsome, right? That's how they become. And It doesn't work. That's not the way it works, right? The way you bring people into the kingdom of God is confrontation. Like, read the book of Acts. Read it. Just read it. All over the place. What is Paul doing? He's picking fights with people. He's fighting people the whole time. You read the Gospels. What's Jesus doing? All he does the entire time is fight with people,
Mm-hmm.
right? Arguments. Constantly. He's constantly in arguments. And he's never being winsome and nice and sweet. He's confronting things that are false and not true. And right, the way and so these people are like, well, they shouldn't be like replying to Ben Shapiro on Twitter and say Christ is King, say Christ is Lord. Right? That's anti-Semitic. That's obnoxious. And yeah, it is obnoxious for sure. But you win people through confrontation, right? You win people through this confrontation of the truth, and what's going to win out, right? That you have to bring, and so it's like, all right, well, if we don't want those guys to be doing the confrontation because they're bad at it or they're stupid or they're bad people, then maybe you should start doing it.
Right. Well, I'm also more interested in like, I'm not interested in the dynamics of like how certain people are doing things. I'm more interested in the overall confrontation. Like, why is this a story? What is actually happening here? What's causing this? You know, what is the meaning of this in history? Something big is happening. And I think it's the hyphen. The hyphen's being liquidated. The Judeo-Christian hyphen is being liquidated. And I think that's the meaning here. I think that's what's significant.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think a lot of it, like, you know, this point with Squidward here, you know, I feel for Nick, the current system requires someone to be a battering ram towards Judeo-Christian assertion, while many Christians who agree won't associate with him but silently cheer him on. You know, yeah. Oh, well, sorry, CJ. Go ahead, say some more stuff while I bloviate.
I can't. I just hit my head on my bookshelf.
Yes. No, you're right though. It is. Someone has to be the first one through the door, and and take the hits, and it's that's the reality of the way things are. But things are changing. People have to recognize what is happening to us and what is going on, and that is right. This post-war consensus, and it's funny, like people attack us like, all you ever say is post-war consensus. Well, it's the world we live in, man, and that's going away. It's dying.
It's the Michael O'Fallon guys that hate that phrase. The post-war
they hate it.
Yeah,
they absolutely hate it.
Yeah, we need to use it more. I think it's a great phrase. I think it's fantastic because I think it articulates perfectly the transition from Heritage America, or at least the residues of Heritage America and the New World Order. Like, people are like, oh, there's a New World Order coming, like in the 90s. It's like, no, the New World Order in the 50s. I mean, Nuremberg, it's the Nuremberg regime. I mean, that's where it was all founded. And I think, in fact, that's the root. Was there a lot of hyphenation of Judeo-Christian before have you studied this? When did that come about? I mean, obviously,
I've looked at the Google Ngram before, and it's like post 1950s.
Is it really? Yeah. See.
Yeah.
Nuremberg regime. That's what's going on here. It's coming undone. But here's the other thing, Andrew. One of the things it's interesting is it's not just historic Orthodox Christianity that's coming to conflict with Judaism, but a lot of the momentum is actually coming from the pro-Palestinian Hamas group. So we've talked about this before, like in Minnesota. I mean, everywhere, all major cities, San Francisco. It's actually not like the major dynamic is not actually between the Orthodox Christianity and Judaism right now. It's between the leftists, the Palestinian leftists, and the state of Israel and the neoconservatives. That's an interesting dynamic because we need to piggyback off of that. Yeah, because we offer a third way.
Yeah, we're third way. We're third way people here.
How's that, Tim Keller? We're
the third way. We're the third way. No, that's just the thing is, and that's why I'm hesitant. I mean, it gets into this question by Lucius Chappell, or maybe Chappelle. I don't know. Besides the obvious theological differences, how would you delineate your rhetoric from Fuentes? Well, I think some of it is. And this is, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to speak out of turn and criticize him for things that he's inaccurately with him. But it seems like a lot of those guys, rather than using the leftist anti-Israel sentiment to their advantage, it seems much more like they just glom on to it and just join hands. I mean, because you would see like when that one guy, self-immolated a couple weeks ago, you'd see a lot of the guys in that orbit like, this guy's a hero, he's great, he's wonderful, rather than like, no, it's a mentally ill person who set himself on fire over a conflict that really doesn't matter to him in any way. And so a lot of it is I think I think in terms of tactics, they do some foolish things. Because I don't want to be on the side of crazy Marxist third worldist people that say that there should be 1 billion people imported into America and our whole country should be destroyed. Right? I don't want those people to win either. But that is the majority of the conflict. And it's funny because there is a lot of it is in the leadership of it, a lot of Jewish people. Like, you remember the early protests, like there was the one big protest in the U.S. Capitol, and it was mostly Jews and like rabbis and leaders that were driving it. And so a lot of it is an internecine conflict among American Jews between like pro-Zionist ones and anti-Zionist ones. And I mean, there's conflicts like that in Israel too. I mean, that's kind of part of the thing that we haven't really even touched on is, right, internally within Israel, there's a tremendous amount of conflict between these two factions. Really, it's like the left-wing, crazy Marxist people and, Likudniks. And so, but I mean, more to, Lucius's question, I think, Nick steps on the skinny branches way too much and gets into zanier things.
Yeah, I think for
I'm
me,
comfortable.
He's not someone who spends a lot of time in tweedism like I do, so I don't know, I can't say what his actual doctrinal interests are or anything like that. I do know he has a different personality than me. I have a completely different disposition and demeanor, maybe to my disadvantage, I don't know. So I don't know where he's coming from, like on the tweed angle, like on his doctrinal stuff. But I just think that a lot of it, in my opinion, could be just, personality. I have a family, and I try to be active in my church, and I'm a good, upstanding, person, like in my community. And he just has a completely different flavor to him. And I wonder if most of it is that, like, I don't know him that well beyond his personality, his persona.
Yeah. And I mean, there's weird, I mean, he's young. He's like 26, so some of it is just a kid too. And
look at you.
Has to mature.
Mid-30s.
I know.
Looking down.
Well, yeah. I am. Like I'm
whippersnapper. Young whippersnapper over there.
I got 5 kids and a sixth on the way. Like, he's unmarried and has had some weird stuff along those lines. And so, like, a lot of it, I think he just needs to grow up. And in that space, that's what he kind of said is, I'm toning things down because I'm growing up. I'm kind of putting that behind me. And so I don't know. I don't pay that close. Again, I don't pay that close. I pay way less attention to him than Jeremy Boring does, apparently.
Apparently, yeah. I also don't spend a lot of time like being concerned about like the Moscow mood and just some of that stuff. Like, it's like, I mean, God, Martin Luther would not be approved by Ligonier. Not Ligonier, Ligon Duncan, I should say. So like,
Maybe
like,
we'll
see. Yeah, it's controversial, but Ligon Duncan would be complaining about Martin mood,
or John Calvin. Like, you read the things that John Calvin said on this particular issue, and it's like, no. Or I mean,
John Calvin was a tweed though.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, you guys would get along. Wasn't. yeah. I'm more in disposition, much more Lutheran, in personality type, and you're much more like Calvin. And so that the one comment is like, this Luther guy needs to stop bloviating about the Pope. Just let Calvin do his thing. But no, like, I think that's a good part of it. And like, you look at, or even like, look back to the Summer of George, and didn't Westminster Seminary in California remove their like J. Gresham Machen plaque because J. Gresham Machen was a racist?
No way.
Did they do that?
Did they really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they did. Someone in the comments could fact check me. They could tell me.
Fact check that. I mean, I guess it wouldn't surprise me, but it's like, It's like Spengler Doom. Like I just feel
Yeah.
like whenever stuff like that happens.
Yeah, and these are like the Machonites. This is like Machen can do no wrong. Well, I
Yeah.
guess he can. I guess he can. And that's a lot. I mean, even like 19th century reform people like R.L. Dabney is verboten completely. Right, you
Mm-hmm.
can't go anywhere near that guy.
Mm-hmm.
All of our fathers are rejected
Mm-hmm.
because they don't conform to the post-war consensus. That's
Mm-hmm.
why. Right, that's it. Like we've rejected these things because we've
Well,
followed sins that didn't exist before the 20th century.
Well, as Stephen Wolfe always says, like, we're just so blessed to live in an age when the
Yeah.
teaching of the Bible lines up perfectly with with the narrative of the regime. We're
Yeah,
so blessed.
yeah,
So
it's the Norm
blessed.
Macdonald joke, right?
Yeah.
It says right here in the history books, good guys won every time, every war.
Yeah.
Right? It's like that's what it is.
One of his best lines. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. I mean, yeah, this thing too is like boring is always talking about money guiding his decisions. Ah, that's true. Like he's following what will make him the most money, not that he cares about like this. And this is the thing. Like approved sentiments, approved ideological ideas are what are going to be allowed, right? If he had like think of it this way. Right, if he had somebody like Nick Fuentes, or maybe even somebody a little bit more mainstream than him, like if he continued to allow Candace to say whatever she wanted to, right? What would have happened to them? Like they're banned from payment processors
Mm-hmm.
to get their bank accounts closed.
Mm-hmm.
All sorts of sources of funding and credit are shut off for them. Like that's what would happen, right?
Yeah.
That is what. And so, on one hand, right, I get it. I get why he's doing what he's doing because the regime will come down on them hard, right?
Yeah.
They'll get what happened to Gab, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what will happen to them if you say unapproved things. The system, and it's totally legal. We have free speech in America, but every corporation is completely an extension of the regime.
Yeah.
Right, that's it. And everybody thinks it's the other way around, that our government is controlled by corporations and things like that. No, it's like a symbiotic relationship, but
It
it's
is.
power that ultimately drives these things.
Mm-hmm.
Right, it's political power that drives it. Like if you had a historic Christian government that are run by Christians that think like Christians did 200 plus years ago, none of this stuff would be happening. None of these corporations would dare do any of the things that they're doing. You wouldn't have Pride Month in June. Right? It wouldn't be happening, right? The corporations would not be controlling the government. It'd be the other way around, right?
Yeah.
They would come down on them hard, and so I think that's a lot of it with the Daily Wire is they know that there are limits, especially a large organization. Like I mean, you look like Ben Shapiro was boosted by Facebook for many
Yeah.
many years, and
Yeah.
Matt Walsh and all of these people because those are the safe, allowable conservatives that are allowed to have a voice. Everybody else is deboosted. Everybody else gets nothing. And like why is that?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that?
Why is that?
Interesting. Curious.
Let's let the audience ponder that.
Yeah.
I do have to take off in a
Yeah,
minute.
you have great and more important things maybe to be doing. No, I'm
I'm
very
gonna go get a
pleased.
helmet
You
and
need yeah, get your concussion looked after for real,
yeah.
man. You do. But anything you want to plug before we go? What are you doing next? What's on the docket?
Well, I
after
have the
here?
Chronicles magazine episode with Buck Johnson. We're going to be talking about religion in a broad sense and the right wing. So you can go check that out on my Twitter feed in like 15 minutes. You can do that. But I also, still write sometimes at my Substacks, cjingle.substack.com or Contramortar or on Twitter. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
And yes, we're still going to have the very special guest.
We haven't announced him yet.
Yeah, we
on
did.
the
I think we
show.
did last week. We talked
Did we?
about Martyr Maid and
Yeah.
and Rod Dodson for subscribers on ContraMundumPodcast.com. So that's going to be happening. It's a little bit late. Easter kind of messed things up for us. So it should be next week. If that changes, we'll let you know. But we'll send an email out about that. And for me, yeah, I had a big week. This week. Andrew on Joe Rogan Experience when. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if that happens. That'd be pretty cool. He shared a part of my book on his Instagram, so maybe Maybe that would be a blast. I get to bloviate for 3 hours on that, and that'd be awesome. At least for me. Maybe nobody else thinks so. But yeah, it will be. We'll see what happens there. I am going on Monday on Oren McIntyre's podcast, so look for that. I'll get to talk to Oren about the book and about many other things. But that's all the big stuff I have going for me. But yeah, please check out contramundumpodcast.com. All our stuff will be there, and you get access to CJ's articles too. That's big and no, they're great. Like anytime CJ publishes anything, I read it immediately, and so you should want to as well. But anything of the based audiobooks, that's the last thing before we sign off.
Yes, I'm waiting for one piece, and I have a really exciting announcement to make. But one thing I'm waiting on.
Not
So
yet.
you can
Okay.
check out the website for now. So
Okay, what is the website again?
basedaudiobooks.com.
.com. Okay.
.com.
Go
Yep.
check that out. So lots of stuff to check out, everybody. We hope you have a wonderful Easter. Have a wonderful Good Friday as well tonight. I know many of you are probably going to services today and tomorrow and of course on Sunday. But have a blessed and wonderful Easter. Stay peacefully, very peacefully dangerous. And we will see you next time.